Sequels are a bit of a touchy subject, especially in the horror genre, since most of the ideas are spent on the first film, and it's quite rare that there is actually any need for a sequel. Although the whole story, quite a good story mind, was very much explained and resolved at the end of the first film, an outline for a sequel was penned by Kevin Williamson. 1 year after the release of Scream, it's time for a sequel.
We're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, cause let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel!
In the 2 years since the events of the first film, Gale Weathers has written a book called The Woodsboro Murders, and it's been made into a film called Stab. Scream 2's opening sequence focuses on the sneak preview of the film and two Windsor College students, Phil Stevens and Maureen Evans. Naturally, the opening is a commentary on something or another because they're all handed Ghostface costumes, and I think we all see where this is heading. After only a minute or two inside, Maureen leaves the theatre to get some treats and she's scared by Phil. He goes for a piss while she goes inside to watch the faithful recreation of the first film's opening. Inside the men's room, Phil hears something strange coming from the next stall, and wow, this guy's got good aim. How did you know that Phil's head would be in that exact spot? And also, how did you know that Phil's body wouldn't be discovered? Anyway, back in the theatre, the killer sits down in Phil's seat wearing his jacket and, of course, the mask. Maureen continues watching the film, blissfully unaware that there's a psycho sitting next to her until the shit hits the fan. The killer does his thing and Maureen uses her final moments to climb up to the screen, screams, and then falls down dead. Whilst I am taking the piss quite a lot, the moment combined with the music is quite powerful, but just to go right back to taking the piss again, I like how the killer vanished by swooping off screen like a cartoon character. Next day, and we're reintroduced to Sydney Prescott, who has decided to leave the past behind her and move on with her life by going to college. Here we see that she receives prank calls from other students, and it's implied that this is due to the release of the film and not a regular occurrence.
Time to change numbers again?
No, it'll die off. It's opening weekend, we'll see how it goes.
News of the murders has reached campus, and Sydney is accosted by journalists whilst trying to find Randy, who's in his film class, and we're treated to this delightful scene. Okay, so we know that these films are super meta and they're talking about the impact of cinema violence on real-world violence, and the first film did touch upon this towards the end with this great line from Billy.
Now, Sid, don't you blame the movies! Movies don't create psychos! Movies make psychos more creative!
Meanwhile, the subject moves on to the validity of sequels, and how few sequels have actually surpassed the original. So Sydney turns up and Randy doesn't think that the murders at the cinema were anything to do with them, while Sydney fears that the nightmare is starting all over again, and here comes Derek. He's Sydney's new boyfriend and he's nice and handsome, but who cares? Gail's back and it looks like the horrible events of 2 years ago have changed her for the worse, meaning of course that she hasn't changed at all. Gail is attending the press conference relating to the murders and she meets her new cameraman Joel, and let me make one thing clear, I love Joel. He's fantastic because he and Hallie are the only two characters who are actually acting like this is real life and not a movie, and realise that the only responsible thing to do when there's a killer on the loose is to get the fuck out of there. Hey, it's Dewey! Back to be as productive as ever. He warns Sydney about the prospect of there being another killer or killers, and also that they may have already integrated themselves into Sydney's life. All of this is pretty civil, so here's Gail to spice things up a bit and add some conflict. Gail springs a surprise reunion onto Sydney with Cotton Weary, the man who she accused of murdering her mother and has since been released from prison and is seeking a lot of media attention after his ordeal. Overall, he's not resentful towards Sydney for his imprisonment, or at least not on the surface. No time for that, ding ding, round 2. Yeah, Gail, you can't be surprised that this happened. It's not the first time Sydney has smacked you for being less than tactful. Gail bumps into Dewey and he's upset with her because of some comments that she made about him in her book.
Dewey, I never meant to imply.
How do you know that my dim-witted inexperience isn't merely a subtle form of manipulation used to lower people's expectations, thereby enhancing my ability to effectively maneuver within any given situation?
She's laughing because she doesn't believe that. On to the next murder, and whilst there's a big party going on, a sorority sister holds down the fort.
Omega Beta Zeta.
Hello.
Yes?
Who is this?
I'm Buffy, the vampire slayer, and you are?
The character's name is actually Cece, and as she continues a conversation with the killer, nature takes its course.
Do you want to die tonight, Cece?
Picking up on Sydney's dumb idea from the first film, Cece unlocks the front door and goes outside, but whilst it wasn't immediately clear if the killer was inside Sydney's house or not, the killer definitely wasn't in the house this time because he definitely does get in through the open door that she left open. The phone rings again and we know what happens.
Hello?
At the party where Sydney is, the attendees all leave as the police have started to arrive at the murder scene. Sydney goes inside to get her coat, but then the phone rings and she almost makes the right decision.
Hello?
Hello, Sydney. Remember me?
Of course it's the killer, but Sydney's not having any of this shit.
Then why don't you show your face, you fucking coward?
My pleasure.
Well, that backfired, didn't it? It's alright though, because Sydney's a pro at getting away from the killer at this point, and it's wonderful that the evolution of her character involves the newfound discovery of using back doors to leave a property. Outside, she runs into Derek, who got around the house so fast that he lost some of his brain cells and runs inside with the killer. I don't know what you're thinking, Derek, you're not a main character, you're totally expendable. Just for now, the killer cuts his arm and runs away. The next day, Gail and Dewey try and make sense of what's happening and stumble upon the fact that the victims' names are similar to the victims in the first film, firmly sealing the theory of a copycat, and now that she's been attacked, Sydney is placed under police protection. Since it's a Scream film, we need to discuss the rules, and Randy gives us the rules of a sequel, which basically boils down to more bodies and more blood. But there's a secret third rule that isn't explained in the film, and if you want to know what it is, then all you have to do is watch one of the trailers, but it's alright because I found it and I'll play it for you.
Number 3. Never, ever, under any circumstances, assume the killer is dead.
Now for the bit that's basically a kick in the tits for all the fans of the franchise, and it's the death of Randy, and here's how it plays out. Randy, Dewey and Gail are sitting around and pondering about what the killer's next move could be until the killer calls Gail's phone and starts doing his thing. They realise that the killer is watching them, so Randy keeps him on the phone whilst Gail and Dewey go off in search of him. Things take a tragic turn when Randy starts winding up the killer and then starts bad-mouthing Billy and Stu until he's dragged into Gail's news van and killed whilst the audience goes... After Randy's death, arrangements are made for Sydney to be taken to a safe location. Outside the police station, Joel makes the sanest decision of all the characters in all of the films combined, which is to leave before he too ends up falling victim to the killer, but he leaves all of his footage. Gail and Dewey decide to watch the tapes to see if they can see the killer, and I'm not sure what good that would do. They know what the costume looks like and they don't know who is behind it, but I'll tell you what it does look like, an excuse to separate them and bump one of them off. The two wait until nighttime to go to some video place on campus to watch the tapes, including their little tiff from earlier, and if you watch the clip you can see Joel filming the conversation. Gail and Dewey start getting it on but soon realise that they're being watched, but after Dewey investigates and there's no one there, the killer pops up from behind Gail. Gail gets away, and whilst hiding in this room, Dewey appears on the other side of this soundproof window, for lack of a better term, and we all see what's coming, and here it comes. I don't know about you, but it looks to me like the killer is stabbing Dewey with the knife in his right hand, but I swear he's holding the knife in his left hand whilst he's being stabbed. Elsewhere, Sydney and Hallie are being taken away to a safe place, but of course the killer intercepts the vehicle, kills Officer Andrews and injures Officer Richards.
Out of the car, you fucker!
Why are you telling him? You're pointing a gun at the person who killed your partner. He's a clear and present threat to the woman you are protecting. Shoot him! Nope, you suck. Well, this is quite the predicament. This scene pisses me off because it's supposed to be scary. Oh, Sydney's trapped with the killer, but the killer's knocked out, and it's pretty much a given that once the killer is unmasked, then it's over, and she's within licking distance of that mask. But she beeps the horn once and then abandons the idea totally. If the horn didn't wake him up, then what makes you think that taking off his mask will? Now let's crawl all over him, that'll make sure he stays in a restful slumber. Car horns and mask removal are far too disturbing, but a knee in the crotch is practically a lullaby. After Sydney and Hallie get out and run away, Sydney runs so fast that she loses her brain cells and wants to go back. Fuck that, you got away! You had your chance to find out who the killer was, but now is the time to run. It's one thing when you're trapped in a car with him, but now you've left him alone. All you have to do is turn your back on the bastard for a second and he's gone. Despite Hallie's sensible reasonings for them to leave, Sydney decides to go back, and lo and behold, of course he's fucking gone. I swear it's a thing that every time Sydney moves away from a character, their chances of dying go through the roof. Oh, well, would you look at that? Sydney runs away from the killer, and elsewhere, Gail emerges from her hiding spot and doesn't go to find Dewey, but who did find Dewey was Cotton, which is why he's covered in blood, and I struggle with this. There's an odd rift in the Gail and Cotton relationship in Scream 2. This woman spent the whole of the last film defending him, and then when Cotton confronts Sydney at the library about the Diane Sawyer interview, he rejects Gail's involvement, although that could have been a ploy to get Sydney to agree to the interview. So now, Gail has spent so much time trying to prove that Cotton is not a killer, but when she's confronted with him and he very clearly tells her that he found Dewey and tried to help him, and she knows that Dewey was attacked by the killer, she immediately assumes that it was him all along. Whilst it is odd that Cotton is mysteriously in the same place as Gail and Dewey, but if he was intending to hurt Gail, then he would be wearing the costume. But no, Gail freaks out and runs outside, snatching the phone off this insignificant reporter character. Meanwhile, Sydney runs to the theatre instead of the police station, where she finds a strung-up Derek who's been humiliated by his fellow frat boys for singing a song to Sydney, which I didn't show because it's cringe. Guess who followed her? The killer. And now for the grand unmasking.
Surprise, Sydney.
It's Mickey, and he begins fucking with Sydney's mind by making her think that Derek was Mickey's partner, even though there's no evidence that he was ever involved, and she didn't suspect him apart from that one tidbit given to her by Mickey.
Derek could have been killed, you know.
But he wasn't. He's fine. He just needs to realize the 90s is no time to play hero. Why would anyone go back in that house anyway?
Yeah, Sydney, who are you gonna believe? Your boyfriend, who's been nothing but nice to you, or this psycho who's been killing all your friends? Although in fairness to Sydney, in the last film, they were the same person. Wait, Sydney's moving away from Derek. He's totally an expendable character. Wait, ooh, you see, you shouldn't have moved away. Derek's dead now, boo-hoo, but what I really want to know is what this stunningly handsome killer has as his motive. Actually, Mickey's only motive is that he's off his fucking rocker and he's only killing all of his friends and fellow students to get arrested and go to trial because he's gonna blame the movies. Yeah, that's not as subtle a commentary as it was in the last film. It doesn't matter anyway, because since he's unveiled his mad scheme to Sydney, he's not just gonna let her walk away. So Sydney resorts to her two default settings, which is badass one-liners,
I fucking killed him,
and killing killers. But just when things are heating up, here comes the second killer, and it's...
Billy's mother! Nice twist, huh? Didn't see it coming, did ya?
Now, we've never seen Billy's mother, and this seemingly insignificant reporter character didn't get too much screen time for her to become suspicious, so indeed, Mickey, it was a nice twist. Not quite of Shyamalunian proportions, but nice nonetheless. It is revealed that Mrs. Loomis found Mickey on a psycho website, recognised his insanity, and drew him into her plot as well as paying his tuition fees. Now Mrs. Loomis is here and Mickey isn't important enough anymore, so bye, Mickey! Gail, you're getting too far away from Sydney. Ooh, sorry, Gail. Mrs. Loomis's motive isn't as interesting as Mickey's, it's just boring old revenge for Sydney killing Billy, but in all fairness, Billy was trying to kill her and did kill her mum, and yeah, it sucks that Sydney's mum slept with your husband and that's what caused your marriage to break up, but you're the one who chose to leave and abandon your son. You can definitely see the family resemblance as Mummy Loomis explains her plans to conceal her identity, just as Billy tried to do in the first film, which involves the guns from the two dead officers, and basically Mickey and Sydney killing each other. What Mrs. Loomis should really have realised by this point is that she's up against the ultimate killer of killers, and once again, nature takes its course.
Don't you fucking move!
Hi, Cotton. Yes, Cotton steps in at this point to become the hero, but not before getting what he wants.
Bet you that Diane Sawyer interview's looking real good right about now.
Consider it done.
And then straight after, swearing that he'd never do anything to hurt her. Okay, Cotton. It's alright though, because Gail's alive. Even though she did wander too far away from Sydney, she's a main character, so she'll be fine, even though that wound is dangerously close to some important stuff. Now for the mysterious third rule, never assume that the killer is dead. And in the last moments, Sydney makes the smartest decision in the whole film. Yep, that should do it. Outside, the carnage is over, but there are still some things that need wrapping up. Yeah, be careful, Gail, that bullet did some real damage. It's not like you should go to hospital and, you know, have it removed. Don't think about it, guys, Joel's back! My favourite character! Oh my god, Dewey's alive. What the fuck? Don't get me wrong, I love Dewey, but really, guys? Hold on, what was that? What? Let's play that again. The knife went into some old scar tissue and saved his life. Yeah, Gail, you should probably go too and get that bullet wound sorted out. Last moments of the film, and having survived her second bout of awful serial killers, Sydney is surrounded by journalists who want to know the story, and whether it be out of gratitude for saving her life or just to make them go the fuck away, Sydney points them in Cotton's direction, telling them that he's the hero, and as the reporters flock around him, Cotton gives her a nod of appreciation, having gotten the media attention that he so craves. Sydney wanders around the campus as the credits roll. So what did I think of the sequel? Well, it didn't seem as put together as the first one was. It was a lot less structured, and there was a very good reason for that.
Kevin sent us, I think something like 30 pages by email. We read it. It was fabulous. It was on the internet in its entirety that night. And all of you little fuckers out there that think that's really cute, you fucking ruined our next 3 months.
One of the endings definitely was posted on the internet. It's not good, but there's really nothing you can do about it.
That script went through a lot of changes, and I can remember writing sessions when Kevin was already off working on his television show at the time, where we would have 6 people in a room trying to brain check each other, because you get a plot line worked out for, say, the second half of the second act, and then, oh no, we can't because she was there, and you can't, therefore you can't. So it's like, a lot of trying to figure out plot points and things in the middle of shooting, which is another thing that comes from people screwing up your script. Kevin was distracted. Right now, his co-producer, Julie Pleck, was my assistant. At a certain point, the film was underway. He had to go off and be on his television show. We were sending Julie to be with him to try to get him to write something or take dictation or whatever, and we were getting pages from her. I was writing. There were other people writing. The whole thing of Sydney doing the play acting, all that stuff was written by me.
Given the fact that the film was essentially being written as it was being made, I still think that it's better than most horror sequels. But is it better than the first film? No, but it's probably as close to the original as a sequel can get. It still managed what the first film achieved, which was to balance the slasher film traits with being semi-self-aware of its standing as a horror film. It was entertaining, the opening scene was good. I did like the fact that we're watching the characters grow and have an arc, and I do like Sydney as a main character. She's making an effort to move on from her experiences and not let it take over her life. She's a good horror movie protagonist. So yeah, I did like Scream 2. It was a good sequel. A very successful sequel. And you know what happens when sequels are successful? Oh fucking hell, you know where I'm going with this. See you back here for Scream 3.